Hello Internet, welcome back to Blue Label Racing. Today I'm working on my track car and I have a deadly weapon in my hand, and this thing is going to help my Mini handle better. Now in all seriousness, this is a big rear sway bar, and this is going to go at the back of our car and help improve our handling. This one in particular is a 25 millimeter and it's hollow, so it's lighter than the rest of them you might find on the market. And this is made by Hotchkiss, but it's sold by Way Motorworks. And if you want a secret, you can go to Way at Way Motorworks and get this bar from him for about $70 less than you might in other places, because it's unbranded and it's a different color, so it doesn't have their branding on it. I was about to get it somewhere else, and I was talking to him, and he told me about this deal, and I was like, hey, I was already going to buy that. So there's some money saved. I'm really excited. This is basically the first place you start if you've got a Mini and you're trying to improve the handling and you don't know whether to go with bushings or ball joints or suspension or coilovers or whatever. Do your maintenance first, and then if you've got a supercharger, put a smaller pulley on it. If you just want to improve your handling, a rear sway bar is the place to start. Now you can see on this one, it's adjustable and you've got 3 points here. The furthest out one is the softest setting, and the furthest in one is the tightest setting, and that's going to adjust kind of on the scale between oversteer and understeer. You can basically just set it up however you want, test it, try it, change it, and adapt it to your liking. So without any further ado, let's do it. Now here's the principle we're working with. Here is the rear suspension, and right here is the rear sway bar. It connects to this link that drops down to the trailing arm, and it runs all the way across the rear of the car to the other side where it connects the same way. And what this does is anytime the wheel is pushed up, meaning in this instance, you're taking a right turn and the left side of the car loads up, most of the load of the car is going to be supported by the left front tire and the left rear tire. And you can adjust the balance of the weight of the car between those two tires by changing firstly springs, but also secondly sway bar stiffnesses. So in a front wheel drive front engine hatchback like this, it's most advantageous to make this rear bar bigger, because when you do that, when the weight of the car lands on the rear left tire, more of this weight is going to be supported by this tire, which means since everything's sprung, that right front tire is also going to take more weight, and it's going to take a little bit of weight off of that left front and the right rear. So this diagonal right here between these two is going to be supporting more weight. And as a result, this right front tire here, since it's going to be on the inside of the turn and probably at full extension, just barely touching the ground, now this will have more traction on the ground, providing extra grip for turning and either acceleration or deceleration. It does get a little more complex than that, but also I'm not a suspension engineer, but I am a mechanic. So let's get this thing put on.
new.
But look
Bad. Good.
Look at the thickness of it. So this is a 17 millimeter. This is a 25 millimeter. All right, now that the sway bar is installed and the subframe's back in and the struts are back in, we're faced with a question. Do we put the bar full soft or full hard, or do we go in the middle? And I can tell you, I'm more of a go big or go home kind of person in this sense, but for now, because of the setup on the rest of the car, not having any sort of aftermarket suspension on it, it's just factory stuff with some bushings and ball joints. I'm going to go kind of middle of the road, just see how it feels. I know it's going to be an upgrade just going to a bigger bar, and this is the biggest bar that they make. So I figured the middle of the road hole is probably still going to be a noticeable difference. But in a couple of weeks, I will be doing some aftermarket suspension, and when I do that, it's going to be aggressive enough that I think I'll go full bore, full hard, and set that link all the way to the front. But for now, we'll go 50%. That sway bar is a pretty quick and easy install, as you can see, but it's also probably the most cost-effective and dramatic change you can make to a hatchback like this in terms of handling. It's really a different animal, and there's a lot more dynamics to the way it drives now. As with any front-wheel drive car that doesn't have, like, say, an LSD in it, which this one doesn't, going through a corner, putting your foot down hard on the gas, you can make it understeer. You can make it do a one-wheel peel if you want to. But on the flip side of that, going through a corner, if you turn the wheel and let off the gas, even in its current form with the sway bar set to the middle, it will actually completely spin out and swing the tail around front. I haven't gotten a chance to drive this really much since I did the sway bar install, because it's been, we had a low of 4 degrees today in Kansas City. So obviously I'm driving my other car. But it's also been snowy, and since this is an Arizona car, I want to keep it fresh and rust-free. So no snow for this car. But in the brief time that I did get to drive it on dry pavement, holy cow, this car is so versatile. I mean, it's on stock shocks and springs, but with the adjustments in the camber ball joints and the caster bushings that I put in the front, and then the sway bar in the back set to the middle setting, you can do so much with it. I mean, you can go into a corner, let off the gas, and the rear end will rotate around real quick and then you could just put the gas back on and take off in a straight line. It just pulls itself straight. It's really cool. It's pretty cool. I have a feeling this car would actually do really well right now in an autocross track because of its ability to just swing the rear end around so quickly. So I might have to do that. I don't know. I do have some other updates for you that I can tell you. Last week I put out a video talking about my seat and the install that I did on that, and I made a comment that I wasn't going to get a harness for it, and I was just going to get a CG lock. And the previous owner of my R53 reached out to me and he said, "Oh hey, I still have the harness that I used in that car like almost 10 years ago in a box. Would you like it?" So now I have safety, so you don't have to worry about me falling out of the seat. This is a Schroth 4-point harness. He gave me these shoulder pads as well, which actually are very comfortable. It just buckles together here in the front with one traditional seatbelt buckle, goes in the factory buckle there, bolts to the factory mounting point for the seatbelt down here, and then it has this cross piece in the rear that bolts into the seatbelt and the buckle in the rear. So this comes in and goes out pretty quickly and easily, but I tried this on and it's even in really good shape. Look at that. I don't think he hardly ever used this thing. I'm really happy about that because I do feel safer and I do feel more snug in the car. So thank you, Bentley. We are going to have a few days next week where it's warm outside, getting into the 50s and 60s, which is going to be nice. So I should have a chance to drive the car with the windows down and the heater on and put it through its paces on the street on some curvy bits with my harness on. And I'm really excited to be able to drive it with that harness. I haven't driven it with the harness yet. I've just moved it around the parking lot. At that point, I'm going to do a little bit of maybe call it a road test overview before I put the suspension on. And then afterwards, I will do a comparison between how it handled on stock suspension and how it handles with the coilovers. And speaking of such, let me show you what I have. This is what's going on the car. These are BC Racing, as you could guess, coilovers. These have gone through Colin Green at Green Performance, and he did some custom valving and some custom Swift springs for me. These are the rears, and they have 8K springs in the rear and 10K springs in the front. He also does custom caster camber plates, so I have the ability to move these top hats left and right and front to back. And yeah, there's a lot of adjustability in there. Also, for the first-gen Minis, since these rear top hats are kind of hidden in the back of the car and you can't access them, you have no way to quickly and easily adjust the damping. So they have these extenders that he sold me with the coilovers, and all you really have to do here is just drill a hole right here at the top in the chassis of the car, and these come into the rear hatch area, and they will come through right in here, behind this panel. So I'll have the adjuster kind of come through right there, and I can quickly and easily reach in, adjust my damping on both sides, and then close the trunk. And in the front, of course, you just pop the hood, and they're kind of right here on top. They're really easy to access. My plan is to do, I think, one more mod to the car before I do the suspension that is suspension related. And then I'll do my overview then, and then do the suspension, do the comparison. In the meantime, I've also started to think about the cosmetics of the car because I'm planning on wrapping it. I want to wrap it blue, like Blue Label blue. And obviously the arch trim is all faded and no longer black. I have a really good product for that I use on my R53 that I'm going to use on here, and I want to show you guys how that works and why it's different, because it lasts a long time. It lasts like 6 months to a year instead of that glossy stuff that is kind of oily that lasts a few weeks. This stuff lasts a long time. I'll show you that, but first, I want to get all the mechanical stuff done before I move on to the aesthetics. So, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. Ring the bell that tells you when I put a new video out. And I will see you next week. Bye.